Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I am speaking with Josh Herren, who is the mastermind behind Galaxy Shores. He's got an all-new self-titled record on the way coming out on January 20th. I have listened to it, I am in love with it, and I can not wait to hear all about it. Josh, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Doing really well. Thank you so much for having me on. This is my first ever interview, and it's not something I ever really thought I would do. So this is really, really cool.
I am honored to have you. Your music is amazing. Obviously, this is not the first time we've covered your stuff. And I'm going to say it 1,000 times. You're going to be like, stop repeating yourself. But the record is really phenomenal. It's totally up my alley for things that I enjoy away from the other things that we review as a website. So just like snaps to you on creating a killer record. Um,
Thank you.
First thing I really want to talk about is I could talk about the production, and we're going to, but I want to know, what is it all about? Is there a resounding message behind the lyrics, or is it just like, what does it mean to you, basically?
Yeah, I think, and I guess it ended up having. I think some of the songs ended up having like similar themes to them, just like because I think it was the first time that I was like, to answer your question, it's not really about anything like as a whole. Like there's
That's
not
okay.
like one sort of storyline, but then like at the same time, like it's dealing with like just where I was in that period of my life. Like I sort
Sure.
of was at a point where it was quarantine. I had nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I was like, okay, like, what do I do with my time? And so like, I
Yeah.
came up with this, I was talking to my brother and we had all these really, you lay in bed at night and it's like, oh dude, like we could start a band and we could go play shows and how cool would it be to do like acting and being all these cool things. And then you wake up and just like spend the day playing video games or do whatever. And it's like,
Yeah.
we had this conversation where I was like, dude, if we don't make the most of this time, like I'm gonna hate myself. Like I
Seriously.
have to make the most of this. And I know probably a lot of people had similar thoughts, and like it was just like, man, I have nothing to do. And so for the first time, I was like, okay, I want to make music. Like let's do it.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, what would I even sing about? What would I write about? And so it's some of the songs were like stuff that was going on in my life at that moment. Some of them it was just like things that maybe were inspired by a current moment, but then it was like I've
Okay.
had this feeling in my life 1,000 times. I've just never been able to, you know, write about it, or like, some of the songs are just like, I guess, sonic journal entries in a way where it's like I'm not a
Sure.
big journaler, but I found that I would, be able to get my thoughts out in like a couplet or a little lyric. And so
Totally.
if any of that makes
No,
sense.
no, no, no. Listen, a couple things I want to touch on for what you just said. First off, there's so many people in your same position that are like, all right, well, we don't know what's going on in the world right now, so let's just make the best of it. Let's actually take this time that we have nothing else to do and be productive. So that's the first thing. Second thing, so many men and women who will not go to therapy, but will spend a year creating an entire album. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I personally don't make music. I'm a consumer of music and I play guitar sometimes. But if I were in your position to really get out those thoughts and do it in a beautiful way that everyone can kind of just enjoy on their own and interpret in their own way, I personally think that's the way to do it. So you're doing it. You've done it. Like,
Thank you. Yeah,
you're on the way.
I thank you. I appreciate it. It was like I had never. I always thought that I would just be a consumer. I was like, I
Sure.
love music. It's brought me a lot of joy. My like dad showed me a lot of classic rock at a
Sure.
young age, and like that's sort of where I came up on. And but I was just there's that barrier of like, yeah, I love it, but I'll never do it. And I think I just,
Understood.
yeah, God put me in the opportunity. Yeah, He gave me a time in my life where I had absolutely nothing going and no excuse. And that was, I think, the biggest thing for me is I was like, there is no, well, but this is going on in my life. It's like, but nothing. Like, like I literally, there's nowhere to go and there's
Sure.
nothing to do. So I got to try.
There you go. Like I said, you've done it. I want to put the message aside for just a moment, and I want to switch over to potentially the more important part. It is just beautiful. Like, it's just beautiful. There's almost like nothing else I want to say about it, but I want to know, how did you make it? Like, the production is killer, the instrumentation, it like actually thinks outside the box, and there's so many artists out there that are doing things similar, but you can just feel like the passion and emotion behind it. And I'm not just saying that. So I really want to hear from you on how the sound of it all came together.
First of all, thank you.
You're
This
welcome.
is
I mean
thank
it.
you
I
so much.
seriously do.
I thank you. I when I started, so my buddy, my roommate in college, my last year, he like came home one day and he's like, dude, check this out. I got a launch key and I got Ableton. And so I was like, oh, like that's like a software. And he's like, yeah, it's like, Kanye West uses it, Tame Impala uses it. And I was like, okay, Tame Impala done, like no worries. And so I sat in there with him and I remember like we set his keyboard up, we plugged it into his laptop and he was like, let me just like pick a sound and like click through. And he's like, all right, go ahead. And I just like laid on a chord and literally I laid on one chord and I was like,
I
I
am
have to get
addicted.
this. I
I'm
was like,
addicted.
I was like, I have to get this. Like,
It's like
there's no
learning
other
a new
choice.
language, though. It's one
It
of the
no,
most
it literally
complicated
is.
programs. It is.
It's so seriously. So okay, so I buy a keyboard for myself before school even ended, and then everything shuts down. And then I started doing this. And so in the very beginning, it was just my laptop and I had a MIDI controller, and I literally was using like Beats by Dre headphones plugged into my computer because that's what I had. That's what I had. I had
I
no
know.
knowledge, no idea.
Okay.
And so I was just sitting in there like making chord progressions. And so there's actually, launch sequence through reentry. That's like the really long, like instrumental one in the middle. That's the first thing I ever came up with. And I was just like,
Really?
yeah, well, I was like, I'm sitting there. So yeah, okay. So how it all came was when everything shut down, we had like my house sits, there's like this hill, I guess, that my house sits on. And we have to, because of California fire codes, we have to like get it like weeded and trimmed every summer.
Sure.
And so normally hire contractors, professionals to do that. But because money was a little bit tighter, my mom's like, hey, we'll pay you and your brother to do it. So I was like sitting there with a weed whacker for 6 hours a day, just like trimming this thing. And it was just like horrible. But I was like, okay, I'll just listen to music the whole time. So I was listening to like, 6 albums of music a day,
Yeah.
just like taking it all in. And finally, at one moment, I was like, you know what? I could do it. I was like, I could do it. I think I play the instruments well enough where I could at least learn.
Sure.
And like, I know it'll take forever, but I could try. And so I was like, well, what would I make? And it was actually during the SpaceX launch,
Oh,
when
cool. Yeah.
they set those things up. It was during that period of time. And so I was like, oh, what if I made like a little space launch song where it's like, you're like with a little shuttle and you sort of follow it up and then you like walk in space with it. And then like, you go back to the atmosphere, but it's not calm. It's like there's stuff going on as you go back down. And so I just like sat there for like 6 hours that night and like, tweaked out the first two sections of it. But it was all MIDI. Like in the very beginning,
Sure,
like
sure.
everything I used was like MIDI and Ableton presets, and there was no like nothing of my own like design. I was just tweaking Ableton sounds. And then as I kept doing it, I just kept getting more gear for myself. So like my brother and I went
That's
in.
another addiction.
It's bad. It's
That
bad.
never ends, from what I hear.
It's not going to. Like it was like my brother and I went and bought a drum kit. And then I was like obsessed with like an analog synthesizer sound. So I bought myself a synth and I got a synth for Christmas. And like I brought my guitar. It was bad. It's bad. I started building a pedal board for myself and I was like, I want all these effects. And but it was like, honestly, it really was a step by step. Like I started off really small and then I was like, okay, I want to record a guitar into the song. How do I do that? And so I reached out to my buddy and he knows what he was doing. And so he was able to show me how to record guitar. And then from there, I was, it was all the drums were just like on a little pad.
Sure, sure.
And so it was literally just me like, like just, and that's all I had.
But no one knows that. Like,
no, exactly.
yeah.
And so, but that's the thing is for me, I was like, you know what? Like I taught myself how to play the drums when I was like a kid. And I was like, I want to play real drums if I can.
Sure.
So I bought a real drum kit and I bought mics and I was like, oh, it'll be so easy. I'll just plug the mics in and it'll sound way better. And 100 hours later, I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Jeez. So, I mean, the project is called Galaxy Shores, but is it just you? Like, is your brother featured on this record, or has everything that's
So
gone in? Yeah, what's kind of the breakdown of that?
yeah, the recording wise, it's pretty much just me.
Okay.
I have my buddy John Christensen. I sent him a mix of one of the songs, and he was like, "Dude, can I like play bass on this?" And I was like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, please come
Like
on.
why? Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, yeah, play you better than me. So
Sure.
Free Fall, he plays the bass on that, but
Okay.
other than that, it's just me in there.
Okay, so I would consider it a solo project for the most part, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it definitely that was yeah, yeah.
Very cool. And so, how long have you been working on this from start to finish? Do you think?
I started summer of 2020.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
but you've
was
had singles come out between now then. This is just like the finished product.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I didn't want to, and I went back like all the singles. I don't know if you could tell, but they've all gotten remastered. Like I went back through them all once I like knew what I was doing more. But like I
Everyone's a
basically just like
perfectionist, man.
I wanted, I buckled down in the beginning and I was like, I don't want to have like a song. I don't want to put a song out until like I at least sort of know what I'm doing. So like I started,
Sure.
I think June, really started grinding it in like May 2020 and didn't even put out the first single until May 2021. So it was like it was a period of time of me just like messing around and like, you know, I wanted to get to a certain spot before I put stuff out. So but it's been yeah, a little while.
That's wild. So, okay, I assume all your time and energy has gone into this because we're in the middle of January. This point right now comes out in 3 days. Are you the type of artist that's always working on the next thing? Like, do you have demos for things that wouldn't necessarily fit on this that you'd like to have on the next project?
Yeah, I would definitely like to say, as an artist, man, it's so wild. It's like I'm so new to this whole thing. But I definitely have already started recording little things. Like, but I think I I didn't really want to record anything new until I was done with this, just because I was like, I want to be able to whatever the next body of work is, I want it to be more comprehensive. So I don't want it to sound like, oh, this song was recorded 6 months before this one. Like you
Sure.
could tell there's like a quality difference. So I definitely wanted to like
Yeah.
get this out of the way so that I could start working on the next. You know, I wanted to know what it felt like because I
Sure.
never finished anything before.
Right. Well,
Like I'd never
there's
even
a cohesiveness that an album needs. Like if you're going to put out something that's supposed to be a listen from start to finish, it can't jump around. Like there has to be some professionalness to it. So I don't blame you for going back and doing the remasters.
exactly. I didn't want you to be able to like because the singles are split up. It's like I didn't want you to like listen to one and then go, oh, okay, here was one that was recorded a year earlier. You could tell. It's like
Right. Well, that's the
I would
thing.
hate to
Yeah.
have that feeling, you know.
That's the thing with Ableton is I can only assume that you learn one new thing and then it's just like the game has changed. Like, oh, I didn't know how to do that before, so that's going to be the focal point of the next thing. And yeah, I totally
That literally was. And then I got to the
understand.
very end and I was getting towards the very end of this thing and I sent like I got down on myself. I was like, I don't know if I can finish this thing. What am I going to do? I sent a track to a buddy and I like sent him a project and he goes, oh dude, like you have limiters on every track and it's too compressed and all these things. And so once I got that bit of knowledge, I was like, well, I could just go back into every other one and like tweak them all. And then, so, I mean, it was a little bit, maybe too much tinkering toward the end, but
Sure.
I mean, I finished it. So
There you go. Okay, so throughout this entire process, from the initial like, I think I'm gonna make music, like I think I'm actually gonna do this, to the being 3 days away from actually like putting it out into the world, is there one thing across this entire process that has surprised you the most?
yeah, I mean, I knew when I started, I was like, you know what? Like, I know it'll take a while.
Yeah.
And that is like the biggest understatement of all time. Like, I like, genuinely, I was like, this is like the most fulfilling, but also the hardest thing that
Right.
I've ever done. Like, easy. I just had no idea. And like, it's so simple, and yet it's not at all. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
Right.
you play things, and it's like, okay, I barely need to tweak this, but then you start barely tweaking for 100 hours. Like, you know, it's and like drums. Like I was playing MIDI drums and I'm like, they sound MIDI in my head. Like I hate the way they sound. They sound digital.
Sure.
And I was like, you know what? It'll be way easier. I'll just plug in a real kit and it'll sound normal. And that was so wrong. Like I plugged in the kit and I plugged in all the mics and I was like, this sounds horrible. Like I can't, how do I do that? And it's like every single thing you see it here and there's a million things underneath that I just had
Right.
no idea. So I really had no idea how long everything would take.
No, I think that's a great answer. It actually makes me think like of all the amazing, most well-known songs in the world. You know what I mean? Like they had to get from nothing to the finish point. But as a listener, you don't see the heartache that went into the maybe 3 years it took. But at the end of it, you're like, it seems so simple. Like, of course they made that song. It everything fell like dominoes. But then when you're actually doing it yourself, it's just like this completely different ball game. I can't even imagine being in that position.
I know it's in honestly, it's given me a lot more, honestly, even more appreciation for like music as
Totally.
a whole.
Right.
It's like because now I hear a song and I'm like, oh man, like you imagine somebody in there like grinding and playing all these notes and these chords and
Totally.
like it
Wild.
just gives it just it's given me a lot more appreciation for the process.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are recording this right at the beginning of the year. I'm going to keep saying that for the entire January that we're at the beginning of the year right now. I want you
Yeah,
to put
yeah.
yourself in your shoes of this time next year. What is a couple things, could be one major thing that you'd like to accomplish by January 2023?
Yeah, I want to play shows.
I think that's very possible.
I think it is. I've talked to my brother and buddies around me. Like I got a group of guys that are willing to like take the show on the road. And that is definitely like what I want Galaxy Shores to be. Like I want it to be. And that's why it's like I didn't use my name. Like I didn't want it to be like Josh Herren. Like I didn't and my mom, I think, was always like, hey, like, I wish I could hear the lyrics more. Like, why don't you do more vocally? And it's like, I want it to be like this, like like this one whole experience, like I want it to be like, if you want to listen to lyrics, you can, but if you want to tune them out and listen to like the sounds, then you can. And so, I want it to be like, I want to play shows. That's definitely my goal. I want to play shows.
That's a very doable goal. I also want to talk about the lyric thing. In today's world of music, it feels like 95% of people do not care even the slightest about what you're saying. It's all about how it makes them feel. You know what I mean? And this, like, I'm not going to say that I wasn't listening to the lyrics, but ultimately the joy from your music is the way that it made me feel at the end of it because of the instruments. It's not a dig to your personal experiences that you're laying out, but I think that was, probably the point of it, is to kind of blow people's minds with what you could create. So there you go.
I mean, hey, if that's what happens, honestly, that's all I could ask for. But
Right.
you're definitely right. I think a lot of them, it's like the lyrics are just an extension of like how I was feeling anyways. And
Yeah.
like some of them, it's like, okay, this solo, the way these notes go down, like I felt a very specific way
Sure.
and it came out in these notes. So like, of course I want people to hear that, it's like, if people hear the lyrics, they hear them and it's like, you can look them up, they're there, but it's like
Sure.
everything is like, I wanted them to sit like a little point of like, I want the lyrics to be like under this like ocean of sound essentially,
Yeah.
where it's like, you are able to, because everything is how I was feeling, it's like, I didn't like the sounds and the chords and the progressions, like it all is serving, I think, like you said, like it's the way it makes you feel. And it's like, if someone can come away from the song just feeling a certain way, like that's all I can ask for.
Yeah, man, music is emotion. So that's it. I also want to know throughout this entire process from start to finish, what's the one thing that you enjoyed the most? Or the thing that like surprised you in the most positive way?
uh I think just like how fun it is, like hearing, like having a thought in your head and then like tweaking and then you're like, whoa, like that's it,
Being able
you
to
know
communicate what you're hearing in your mind to like a
yes, yeah,
program that
because
you didn't know how to work before.
exactly, I had no idea what I was doing. And
Yeah.
so I would always tell my friends like, oh, I wish I could get the way it sounded in my head like
Yeah.
onto the thing. And like,
Yeah.
you hear some of the tracks and like a couple of the songs, like it was like Live Without and What Once Was and Still Could Be, like those ones specifically, like the instrumentals came together like in a week period. So like
Okay.
spending a week like experimenting and like, going over the Juno and like making little patches and like, Live Without, the drums took me 7 hours because I just like couldn't get the groove like what I
Jeez.
wanted. it was like, and it was just because it's like, I couldn't get the groove the way I wanted it or the way I felt it. So then like,
Yeah.
I heard that, in its entirety and being like, oh my gosh, like this was the way I heard it in my head. And like, here it is. Like that is a really fulfilling feeling.
7 hours. Jesus, man. That's dedication right there. Good for you. Wow. Okay. I have a couple more questions for you at this point. Basically, I want to know because we are a music blog and we're always trying to put people onto what else they should be listening to. Obviously, people are going to listen to this, but what are you listening to? What's been the highlights on your playlist? Song that you can't just turn off, or just artists that need to be
Uh, I, I mean, I'm a massive Tame Impala fan,
heard?
and I think I definitely that definitely inspired me in regards to like a one person able to create music because I hadn't really had that idea in my head before I knew about Kevin Parker and like his process. Like I remember hearing a song and my buddy's like, "Hey, it's from this band, Tame Impala," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then later, like shows me another one of Months on the Road. I'm like, "Who's this?" He's like, "Tame Impala." I was like, "That's the same dudes." He's like, "It's one guy," and I was like, "It's one
It's
guy."
one
So like
guy.
that like definitely inspired me. But I mean, for me, I love Tame. I love Pond. I'm really trying to dive into like the psychedelic scene. I think
You love King
underrated.
Gizzard?
There's dude, King Gizzard. The fact that they literally make
Best.
like a Western country album and then their newest one, Butterfly 9000, is like
Yeah.
all sequencers. Like I think they're like that's another level.
Yeah, man. You just named my three favorite bands, so obviously we have a lot
Hey,
in
dude, then
common.
let's go. Like I
Yeah.
love that, and I think a lot of people though I would recommend like diving into the old school, like listen to Pink Floyd,
Oh
listen
yeah,
to
obviously.
listen to Boston. But I feel like it's like that was so underrated for me as a kid. I was in fifth grade listening to like Foreplay Long Time and like
Right.
the Cars and like I was like, what is this? Like, what am I hearing? Like
Yeah.
listening to like Dark Side of the Moon as a kid. Like I think it's like you have to listen to the old school because that is how like that's where these guys get their sound
Yeah.
on some level. Like
Totally.
everybody's trying to be unique, but it's like Pink Floyd. I mean, those guys are like next level.
People will be influenced by them for the rest of time, I can only assume.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Great music choices. And also shout out if you haven't watched our interview with Pond and a couple members from Tame Impala, check that out.
I've watched them
Uh,
all, dude. They're all
Fuck yeah.
that's like honestly, that's why I'm so honored to even be in this position because it's like you've interviewed like Nick Albrook and like Dom and like
Yeah.
Julian and all these guys, and it's I'm listen, waiting for the Kevin interview. It's got to come eventually.
I try to speak it into existence every day, and
Manifested.
it's
You've had
going to
all his
happen.
boys. You've had all
Going
his
to
boys on.
happen. I'm
Let's
waiting.
go.
I'm waiting for a proper release. I don't know if he does interviews outside of release cycles, but yeah, one day, one day. Anyway, thank you. One more question for you. And basically, the question is for the person that is going to discover you from this, and for the person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them?
Uh, I, music has given me a lot of joy, and if all anybody gets is like a feeling of like going somewhere else, like that's all I can ask for. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not claiming to know what I'm doing. Like I like the songs. I love doing this, and like now I want to do it forever.
Of
And
course.
if you can hear the songs and you can just be able to be transported somewhere or like feel like you're able to like escape from the mundane of life or from like a stress schedule, if you can just like put on the songs and you're able to like be blessed, like it blesses me to create music. Like God's blessed me with this creative ability and I want to use it and I want to use it to bless other people. So
Absolutely.
if you feel better after having listened to the songs, that's all I can ask for.
Beautiful answer. And Josh, I seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to do this. It means so much. You're in Simi Valley, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in the valley, so I am not currently home. But when I am, we'll grab a beer and we'll talk about music
Hey, I would love that.
into the night.
I would love that.
I
Can I
would love
ask?
that as
Can
well.
I ask? Do you have a favorite on the record?
Jesus, you're gonna put me on the spot right here.
Well, no,
I
it doesn't. It doesn't have. There's no right answer.
it's a compliment. Um, I typically don't like picking openers, like the opening tracks. However, I feel that like in this specific situation, it is the all-encompassing track that kind of sucks you into the record. and it makes you not want to skip. Like living in a culture of singles, it's so easy to just put something on a playlist and forget about it. But like once you listen to the opener and it sucks you right in, like you're not going to want to skip it. So that is my closing message to say.
Thank you.
And again,
Thank you.
seriously, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Let's stay in touch, man. Uh, Release is on January 20th. It is a self-titled EP, Galaxy Shores. Everyone listen, share it, send it, follow. We'll have all the links. And dude, just congrats on a killer record.
Thank you so much. I hope my
You're
answers
very
made any
welcome.
sense.
They made
This
all the sense.
you're my first interview, so thank you. This is so wild. I really
I'm
appreciate you.
I'm honored. Dude, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You
Talk
as
to you
well.
soon. Bye bye.
Yeah. Yes, sir. See you.